Hello? This is the first story I decided to share. It's probably the most unexplainable experience that occurred in my life. It is a story of an extra perception of something that no longer exists. The doll from the past. The story begins long before I was born, when my mother was still young. One day she participated in a spiritism session with her sister and possibly other people, though I never knew exactly how many. During the session, something strange happened. A porcelain doll, which was in my grandmother's house, supposedly turned its head and blinked while looking directly at my mother. Terrified, she ran out of the house, and after that, she rarely ever returned. She already had a difficult relationship with her mother, which gave her even more reason to avoid the place. Years later, in July 2011, I visited that house for the first time. I was about 10 years old. I was with my mother and my sister. We were alone, as my grandmother wasn't there that day. My mother, not getting along with her, had taken the keys and decided to go while she was away. At one point, while we were on the ground floor, my eyes fell on a small wrought iron chair at the bottom of a staircase. Sitting on it was a porcelain doll. She had wavy blonde hair, wore a green dress, and had a small bowl of lavender between her legs. Nothing seemed unusual to me. The doll was just there, as if she'd always been. But when I mentioned her to my mother, her expression changed completely. She went pale. She immediately started questioning me. What did the doll look like? Where exactly had I seen her? The more details I gave, the more anxious she became. The doll I was describing was identical to the one that had terrified her years earlier during the spiritism session. Panicked, she called my grandmother to ask if she had kept the doll or if she was playing some kind of trick on us. But the answer was clear. No, there was no doll. There hadn't been one for years, and for a very good reason. This doll no longer existed. It had burned in a fire years ago, in an accidental kitchen fire that had destroyed part of the house. The only thing that had survived the flames was the wrought iron chair on which I had seen the doll sitting. Yet that day, I was the only one who saw her. We went back to the house sometime later, but this time I saw nothing. Still, I was afraid to look at that chair, fearing I might see the doll again. But there was nothing. I still don't know what I saw that day. A hallucination? A residual memory of a lost object? A final echo of that doll that had once terrified my mother? I have never found a rational explanation. But one thing is certain. Since that day, dolls deeply unsettled me. If you have questions, want more details, or have theories, let's break it down in the comments section below. Please show your support by subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the video. This really helps us a lot. I upload daily horror stories, so make sure to press the bell icon. I stayed at a rustic B&B near Sharpsburg, Maryland, overlooking the Antietam battlefield. Obviously, I was aware of the area's haunted reputation. I very much believe that the area is extremely haunted after my time there, but I did not expect just how soon things would begin happening. For context, I was staying there with a friend, in rooms adjacent to each other. Each room had a private, screened-in porch that had somewhat of a unique view. Each room had a different angle of the battlefield. Anyway, I was sitting on my porch at around 9 p.m. The sun doesn't set as soon as it does on flat land due to the elevation, so it was still slightly light out. I was able to watch the sunset, and as it was setting, I began to be overwhelmed with feelings of dread. Eventually, they went away, and I was able to calm down. At around 9:30, I began seeing a very faint light in the field, dancing and undulating, but not bright enough to be a car's headlight. Mind you, I'm overlooking the site of one of the bloodiest days in American history, with quite a bit of residual energy. I would soon figure out that the light was the least of my worries, as I called my friend over to take a look. We decided to go onto his porch to take a look and see if we could see this light from a better angle. After looking at the light for a few minutes from his porch, I suddenly look slightly to the left and I see a black shadow figure manifest from the ground, dart in front of a tree and retreat back into the darkness. It was already dark outside, but there were outdoor lights and I could see the very dark black figure, even against the background of the night. Upon seeing it, my body was overwhelmed with goosebumps, and I was so freaked out that I went back inside. I consider myself a relatively reasonable skeptic. I keep an open mind, but will always try to debunk something. I had no reasonable explanation for what I saw. I did not sleep that night, as the feeling of a presence in my room filled me with some serious trepidation. I jumped at every knock and creak. I'm a grown adult, and I'd never been so genuinely scared in my life. The next morning, after breakfast, I discreetly asked the innkeeper if she had ever had anything like that happen to any other guests. She did attest that people had spotted similar figures at the edge of the property just before the field meets the woods. I'm still reeling from that experience. The rest of the second day was peaceful. I had a private ghost tour of Shepherdstown, West Virginia, that night, which further strengthened my belief that the area was haunted by some heavy, dark, angry,